Yeah.
Also, Long Island X. So, right, obviously, you guys know I sent you guys the little info about Koloa. So, Koloa's my cousin, and so Koloa is known for, right? He founded the investment firm that has amassed, right, currently a portfolio that's worth over $500 million. So he's the first Polynesian or first Pacific Islander to graduate from Yale Law School. So like, yeah, these are pretty big things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dope,
And
man.
it's truly an honor, Kola, for you donating your time for a little podcast here. You know what I mean?
Oh
We're
yeah,
not,
thanks for having
yeah, yeah, we're not officially starting yet. I mean, like, but just letting the guys know little background more on you. And
me. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
man,
no, seriously, I appreciate the time to come out and talk, and if it helps someone
yeah,
think about something, then yeah, seriously, CC, appreciate it. Yep.
yeah.
So basically what you're said right now with Koloa's intros is he is the Tongan Dexter's Laboratories. Let's get it.
Hey,
Let's go.
man, I remember growing up when I used to go to Kolo's house. This guy always had a book in his hand, walking around with a book in his hand. I was like, man,
Hell
I told his
yeah,
brother,
dude.
is you seriously reading right now? Yeah,
So
man.
it's on my lineup next.
Oh,
Oh,
nice, man.
hey, so
That's it, brother. That's the key.
Hey, right there, that lineup right there, it looks like you could be at NBC, who's the newscaster, who's or news reporter. So.
Yeah,
Let's
Kolo, I'm
go,
sorry,
silly.
man. But I'll tell you this, man. Growing up, Kolo wasn't really like, how do I say this? So Kolo didn't really kick it with Polly's. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Just so you know.
No, I don't,
So,
no, I don't. It was part of it was I went to a school. I went to like one of the Cypress schools, and it was all like Asian, right? So I didn't go to like Savannah, or I didn't go to any of the schools that everyone else was. So I was the only Polynesian in my school. So it was like a bunch of Asian kids, right? And I didn't play
Yeah.
sports because I had cancer when I was a kid, so I had leg issues all the time growing up until I was a little bit older.
So good.
So I didn't play any sports, anything like that. But like actually, see, I don't know. I actually ended up learning Tongan after my mission, and
Oh, dope.
yeah, I
how,
translated my grandma's journal, stuff like that. So now I spent a lot of time around Tongans, but then I did
uh,
marry a Palangi girl, so I don't know what that meant.
so you learn Tongan.
Yeah,
Like, do you feel comfortable speaking it and like reading it? And
definitely reading it, speaking it, pretty good. Yeah, like I've had to do like Sunday school lessons and stuff like that when we
are you
would travel.
serious?
Yeah, yeah,
You know what, Kolo? I've heard of that. Like, I think my dad brought it up, but I never really heard it firsthand. You know what I mean?
yeah. I can
But
talk about how to do this. So yeah, anyway, but yeah, no, I just didn't. I definitely didn't. I don't know. I think I was. We can talk about this and thing, but like I never felt like I had to hang out with Polynesian just because I was Polynesian. I didn't feel like I had to
yeah,
hang out with white folks. And so usually I just hung
yeah,
out with people who had the same interests as I, which mostly was
okay,
Asian kids. It's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
usually the Asian kids is like, hey guys, how do we study for the SAT? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
Hey, Koloa, that school you're talking about, this guy X went there too. Oxford Academy.
Oh,
okay.
is
So
that where you
yeah, so
went?
actually, yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a bunch of
Yeah, yeah.
Southeast Asian and Indian kids,
Right,
right?
right, yeah. Dude, I got
Hey,
kicked out of there though.
this guy, dude.
Bro, I was too bad, man. Like, I mean, I went there, like, I passed the test and everything, and I went there,
Yeah,
but I didn't fit in. It was like you said, you fit in because everybody was similar, and for me, it was like I couldn't like connect with anybody. As far as like, I was the only kid that liked reggae music. I was the only kid
yeah.
that was Polynesian, like you said, Oos, and then I guess there's just a couple incidents I had with the teachers where like I almost got into it with the teachers, and yeah, ended up
They're like,
throwing a
who is this
desk
Polynesian?
across the classroom.
We're used to this Vietnamese kids. Who's this Polynesian kid trying to fight us?
Exactly.
So like,
Exactly,
no, hey,
man.
so like Koloa, yeah, he probably wouldn't have made it over there, Oxford Oost, because he did have some issues with some teachers Oost in from my remembrance back in the high school days. Oost.
No wonder when I got there and they were like kind of hiding behind the desk a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, exactly, man. They remember
Yeah.
me, man. Cause I ended up like throwing a desk across the classroom, and then the security came after me. I was like, "Yeah, I'm out of here, dude."
Dude, dang.
No, I like that you brought that up, Koloa. And I feel like that's something that can be very beneficial for the youth. It's like you ain't gotta always hang out with the cool people or like a certain crowd. Be you and just hang out with who has similar interests as you, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that we kind of came up to that topic. So
Yeah, that's funny,
Yeah.
man. That's the same school.
So like, hey, and Koloa, honestly, Oost, hey, by the looks of it, Oost, like me and your skin color, Oost, we're following you too. Oost, come on now, Sully.
yeah, yeah. Aaron's half balling with that. Well,
Half melody.
half Melody, right?
So like, yeah, Oost, hey, so like, Koloa,
Yeah.
I'm Samoan and black Oost, but you know I got that light skin blood on me. So like, come on
Yeah,
now,
that's
Oost.
right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right, so I'll just go ahead with the intro, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. All right. You guys ready?
Yeah. Breathe this.
All right.
Breathe inside.
So,
Hey, breathe
hey,
in.
Koloa, man. Tell this guy, man. He's nervous. This is a little podcast. Like we know it ain't no big thing, Oos, but we do appreciate you, brother, being on here with us, man. And I know Cece wants to do a good job to do good by you, man. We
Easy, man. I'm
respect,
easy.
yeah, brother. We respect what you've built for yourself, and we hope that although our humble little podcast, man, can definitely showcase all the great things that you've done and your accomplishments, Oos.
Yeah.
And so we know Cece's nervous about us
Oh,
doing
no,
a good
no, I'm
job,
fine.
Oos.
Hey, still,
Yeah.
hey, Koloa, mind you, right now it's that Eminem song running through his brain. It's just, "My palms are sweaty, eyes are ready." Like that's what he's thinking right now. So
Yeah.
CC knows me. We're just family, man. It's simple.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
So we'll get
You
started.
good, Oos.
Yeah. All right. Ready?
All I got is $1 and a drink. Oh yeah. So what you gonna roll on with me?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Pack Nation podcast. I'm Cece.
I'm X.
and I'm Aaron.
Yeah. So today we have a special guest with us, who's actually one of my relatives, my cousin Koloa. Right? He's my second cousin. Our dads, Felipe and Solo, they're first cousins, and our grandmothers, Salote and Bilika, are sisters, right, from the Tongi bloodline of Pea and Hate Hotongatapu. So that's how me and Koloa are connected. And just a little intro about Koloa. Koloa is a cancer survivor. He's an Olympian. Koloa is a scholar athlete, a nonprofit founder. Koloa is a return missionary, a father to 5 beautiful blessings. Koloa is a husband to his beautiful wife, Rebecca. And Koloa is actually the first person of Pacific Island descent to graduate from Yale Law School. So that's a pretty big deal. And also, Koloa is a co-founder of Wolfgramm Capital, an investment firm that has amassed a portfolio of currently over $500 million. So, Koloa, sorry about that long intro, but I just wanted to put it out there who you are, because you are a man of many, many things under your belt. And it's just, I really find it an honor to be related to you. You know what I mean? And to kind of brag about my cousin a little bit. You know what I mean? What you've been able to go through, right, through like your upbringing and stuff. And behind every story, every story of success, there's always hardships, right? There's hardships and there's struggles. And so we kind of just wanted to ask you questions and talk to you about what you went through, right? Like while going through this journey, right? Being where you are today, right? So I guess we can just kind of start where you're from, right? You're an Orange County native, right, of Anaheim, and yeah, can you
Yeah.
kind of talk to us about your upbringing?
Yeah. So I was born in the Bay in Palo Alto, and then when I was 4 years old, we moved down to Orange County, and then I lived there basically my entire childhood until I went off to college and things like that. So lived in Anaheim, a couple miles from Disneyland, my entire elementary, junior high, high school, like all of that, and I loved it there. And although I live in Texas now, I don't know, maybe I might find my way back to California in the next 10 years, maybe. I'd like to get back there. But yeah, that's where I'm from. That's where I was raised. And Cece and I, like I said, we're cousins, and we were in the same area. Also, like they were our only family when we first moved to Orange County. So we came from the Bay, where that's where all my family's from. When they came from Tonga, they settled in Palo Alto, and then we moved down to Orange County. The only family we had was Cece and a couple of his first cousins, Douglas Amasio's kids, and they lived not too far from us. We were probably within 5-10 minutes of each other. And so they were like I remember Solo coming over, Douglas coming over, and bringing chop suey, and not theirs, I think their wives, chop suey, and bringing cuckoo and all that stuff early on, helping us figure out what to do. And so yeah, the Amacios were huge to our family, kind of settling and being in Orange County. They're the only family we had for really our whole time we were down there. We were the only Wolfgrams that ever settled down in Orange County. So Amacios and us were pretty close at that time. I'm on the younger side on my side family, so I think like CC is a little bit about the same age of some of my older siblings, but I'm the same age as some of CC's younger siblings, and so yeah, we kind of have crossed paths a lot over the last 20 years.
No, it's cool that I'm still representing your Orange County roots, because like we said earlier, man, we all love Orange County. It's hard to leave, and cool to see that you want to come back too, man. Like it's no place like Cali, no place like home. Well, that's dope, man. And so, what kind of led you, took you from Cali to Texas, and what kind of led you out there?
Yeah. So it's like a couple moves. I think it wasn't obvious up front. So when I was in high school, I started playing basketball, and I had so when he brings up the sports thing, I had cancer when I was a kid. I went to Chalk Hospital right there in Orange County, and then I had my leg amputated, and so after I had my leg amputated, I started getting involved in like the Paralympic sports side. And so while I was in high school, I made the USA bobsled team for the Paralympic team. And so I finished high school when I was 15 and a half and moved out to Utah so that I could train full time. So I was out in Utah training on the team, and we would go to Canada and go to Europe and New York or whatever else, and just on the different bobsled track, competing in different cups and things like that. But I knew when I was in bobsled, I knew at that point a couple of things. One is I knew I wanted to go on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, which I'm a member of. And I knew I also, at that point, I was kind of thinking that I wanted to go either into like medicine or law. And so that was what kind of let me out of, that was the last time I lived full-time in Orange County, was in 2011 when I was 15. So then I moved out of my parents' house, and I graduated from my parents' house. I actually started college at Cypress. I did an online program they had there at Cypress College. And we could talk a little bit about that. I didn't do very well at Cypress College. I think I'm the only Yale graduate to probably have almost failed out of a junior college. And then anyway, yeah. So that was the process of getting up to like leaving Orange County, and then I go on mission, and then come back. I went to BYU for undergrad, and then I went to Yale for law school, and then eventually made my way to Texas for professional reasons.
Oh man, that's cool. That's a great story, man. That's crazy. You graduated early and went to Utah. You pretty much started your journey at 15, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's something about like people say, you probably heard the phrase like college is not for everyone, right? And I think that's true. It's probably also the case that high school is not for everyone. Like, in fact, I think there are a lot of kids that struggle in high school that do really well in college, and probably vice versa. Or a lot of kids in high school, by the time they're 15, 16, they know what they want to do. Why do you want to sit around and take English class and read Hemingway for another 2 years when you know you want to go into media production or athletics or whatever else it is? Most of the time, I think that's what's happening is they just get into trouble, right? 16, that junior, senior year, you're bored anyway. You don't want to be in class. You don't want to study math, right? And at that point, it's not like helpful math. It's not like everyone can add and subtract and multiply and divide. Like, why do you have to learn how to figure out the integral of a limit? It's like, what's the point of that? And so they get bored and they go. So I do think that I think that there should be a more like options looked at either finishing high school early or doing stuff online to allow to pursue like some of your other like things that you're actually interested in. And so that was like a big realization to me, talking to my parents and stuff. And I obviously had to convince them, because when you're below the age of 18, you have to get permission from your parents for a lot of things, including college stuff. And I remember I was in a college class and I had to get my parents to sign a waiver because we were going to watch a movie that was like PG-13.
Oh, wow.
I was only a little waiver, get my dad to sign off on it. So anyway, so I think I do think that there's something about, for kids who think that they know what they want to do, I think there's something about looking at expediting the high school experience. California has a lot of options. Most states have options where you don't have to even drop out, but you can take a challenge test you can challenge the state for an exam. And it's not that difficult. It's like using math and English, and you can take it, and then you have your diploma, and then you can go and do college or do whatever else you want to do.
And so you knew like what you wanted to pursue in college. That's why you were trying to get out of high school early.
Yeah. And I knew I wanted to do the bobsled thing, and bobsled season runs from October to April, and you got to be like up on the track, and you got to travel. And so there's no way to really do high school. Either you can do high school online, or you try to test out. And so I figured if I couldn't test out, then I just do it online through, there's a million online high school programs. But I figured I might as well get some college done early. And like, yeah, so that I do think that there's value in like some of the non-traditional routes. The traditional route was there for a reason. It's kind of for like, maybe if you don't know what you want to do, so trying to figure things out. But I do think that, because like what I wanted to do at that point, I probably wanted to be like go into bobsled and then go like coaching after that. Like I didn't think I wanted to go to law school necessarily at like 16 or 15, but I don't think there's anything wrong with like encouraging young people to go after what they want to do, even if that thing changes over time. So like, I'd rather have a young kid who's 15, 16 and says, hey, I really want to be an author. It's like, great, like do that. Like wake up every day and spend 18 hours trying to be an author. And like, maybe you change your mind in 2 or 3 years, but like you've developed that ability to like be consistent about something, or like go after your, like what you're passionate about. And then if you decide, oh, I don't want to be an author, I want to be a real estate guy or something like that, like it's easier to shift those habits that have already been created to a new goal rather than create those habits in the first place. And so one of the worries I see, like some of the younger generation, not younger generation as a monolith, but just people who are 15, 16, 17, 18, is that if you get so used coasting, like through high school, whatever else it is, then it can be hard to turn it on when you get out of high school and now you have to actually pursue something. So I'd rather solve for, let people be passionate about the things they do and let them learn how to invest in themselves to achieve a goal, even if that goal is going to change. I think that's a better thing.
That's great insight, man, especially for parents too, because a lot of Pacific Islander parents coming from the islands, all they know is just one thing is like, oh, go to school, play sports, try to make it to like NFL, NBA.
Yeah.
Then now to see that you were successful taking a non-traditional path, man, that's dope because that opens up so many different avenues for Pacific Islander families to show like, hey, these kids are passionate about something. Like, let's let them build those characteristics and develop those skills so that they are more prepared for life after high school and college. And man, that's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Bye-bye.
Hey, so like, Koloa, that is pretty dope, Boost. Especially like CC was saying earlier. So the fact that you're not any regular Polynesian that likes to play sports. So you know what I'm saying? And it kind of reminds me of my brother Oos, where you got your own little vibe, Oos, and you stick to that plan and you follow that stuff, Oos. So that's pretty. Obviously, I know you go to church, Oos, but so like, that shit right there, that's dope, Oos.
Yeah. I mean, like don't get me wrong. Like sports is like, especially for Polynesians who have what is it, like National Geographic do their study. Like Polynesians are 52 times more likely than the average to be a professional athlete. Some of that, like, if you're a Haloti Nada, like do not go to school. Like go play in the NFL, right? Be clear about that. But for some folks, it's, and you probably know these kids like this, like they're naturally gifted, right? And so they can make it to a high level with basically not trying. But there always comes a point where it's like, what's the thing that you get up and think about when you don't have to think about anything else, right? And if it's not sports, then that's not going to take you to the professional level, right? It might take you to maybe college or maybe the start of your high school team. But like, what's the thing that you get up in the morning, you have an open day, it's like, what is the thing that you want to think about? And if it's not the thing that you're doing, then maybe you should think about, is there a change? Is there a way I can incorporate that more? And so I do think like there are kids that, we've all seen this. I mean, Cece and all of his brothers that I know, and Douglas's kids and all that were like this, were like, they never showed up to practice, or I don't know about Cece, but I know like some of our cousins, they never showed up to practice and they'd be like first string, like All-American, like all this kind of stuff. And it was like, so if that was your natural, and in some ways, I think that can hurt in some ways, because it's like, if you don't have to try really, really hard to get to that level, then you don't learn the skill of like learning how to try. And that is a skill that I think just takes some time to be applied.
No, man, this is all good insights, Koloa, man. Oh, man, it's a lot to take in, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's cool, man, because it gives us a different perspective.
Yeah.
And especially out here in SoCal with high school sports and like the NIL that is now in place, not only in college, but now it's reaching out to the high school levels in most states, especially California being one of the first states where it started. Now kids are just like 100% invested in that and focusing on that. And when it doesn't work out, then it's like, oh, well, I'll just go work some random job where it's not going to get me anywhere. So it's good to understand that there's many different avenues and many different paths to success, and be able to open that up for the different kids and the different youth.
Yeah. Hey, Koloa, so let's talk about that nonprofit that you founded.
Yeah. So there was a nonprofit that we were basically, so all of us were amputees, right? So we all played basketball, and so I was missing a leg, and some of them were missing an arm, whatever. And so basically what we did is we thought, and one thing about us is that we didn't play like wheelchair basketball, right? So most people who have an amputee or whatever else, they usually play wheelchair basketball because that's really the only sport that's available. But I played varsity high school basketball starting, whatever, just one leg, right? I could jump high, I'm fairly tall. I went to a small school, so like being like 6'3" is like, you're like freaking Shaq, right? Like you felt like, and so it wasn't like, and so, but it's anyways, so a bunch of us got together from around the country, and we were like, look, I think this is something that's kind of interesting. We got sponsored by Nike, and we've done commercial Air Jordan and a bunch of different brands. And we said, what if there's a way that we could go around and as us as amputees, we would play against able-bodied folks, right? Non-amputee teams. Sometimes it'd be like graduating, like D2 or D3 teams, because we had to be worried. We typically couldn't play people who were non-graduating seniors because they didn't want to get hurt for like their next season, and they had like all these rules and stuff like that about what they could do. But we would go to like Baldwin out in like Indiana or whatever else, and we go to Cleveland, go to Florida. We went to Texas a bunch of times, and we find like a local college, and we play their graduating seniors, and we'd invite all the local hospitals, like bring your kids who have amputations, because the problem is when most kids get their leg amputated or an arm amputated, like there's this feeling that it's like the end of like the life as they know it, right? Like it's never going to be the same, whatever else. And our kind of message was like it doesn't have to be the end. Like you can figure it out. Yeah, it's a little bit harder for you than the next person, but like you can figure it out, and you can play sports at a high level. We'd have dunk contests and all that kind of stuff. So these guys are like one leg coming up and we're dunking it and all that kind of stuff. And so just an opportunity to kind of show them that like you can still do these things even though you have an amputation. And then we would raise money and use that money to help the kids with buying prosthetics or getting some of the more sports ones. And so I did that. We started that when I think I was 17. It was during the off season of bobsled. I did basketball during the off season, started the nonprofit. And that was actually the first time that I saw lawyers like in action, working with the lawyers and stuff like that. And that was probably the first time I had like an inkling, like, oh, maybe I might be interested in law school one day. That was the very first time I'd ever really interacted with lawyers on the professional sense.
Yeah, I still remember when I got off my mission, back when they still let missionaries play with the regular people on P Day.
Yeah.
I remember that's the first time I seen you in a long time. And I was like, hey, man, Koloa, tall down, right? Because remember you would ball with Dani and like the missionaries? Yeah. I was like, man, Koloa's tall now. And then from there, I think around that time you were preparing for your mission, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then you ended up going to England, right?
Yeah. I served in London South Mission, and I was originally called English speaking, and then soon after I got there, they assigned me to Mandarin Chinese speaking.
I actually remember that story, Koloa, about the Mandarin speaking, about how was it like your mission president like just felt impressed to he just told you, hey, I need you to learn Mandarin, right? I don't know. I think that was a really cool story. Would you mind sharing it?
Yeah. It was so when we went to England, London, and 3 months in, I was so the way that missions work is like the first 3 months you get trained by someone to kind of show you how to be a missionary, and then the next 3 months for me, I was training another missionary. He was from France. He was from Africa, but he spoke French, and so he was learning English. And anyway, I was like, one of my interviews with our mission president, who's won over all the missionaries in that area, I asked him, "Hey, what should I do kind of during this area?" And he looked at me and he goes, "We have a Chinese mission here in our mission. We have a bunch of missionaries, like 8 of them that are assigned to speak Chinese, and they mainly work with the Chinese students, right? So there's a lot of Chinese students from China, from Hong Kong, from Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, that come to England for the universities, right? They attend Oxford, Plymouth, Portsmouth, right? Probably most universities have this." And he goes, there's kind of this odd time where like we don't have enough, or we're trying to expand it because the Chinese work is going really well. And he goes, why don't for the next like month, why don't you, while the guy that you're working with, your companion, is learning English, why don't you start studying Chinese? And so I was like, okay. And so I started studying Chinese and got a couple books, whatever, and started doing it. And then I get about after that month is done, he gives me a call and he goes, okay, you're gonna leave your area, you're gonna go to one of the city areas, and you guys are gonna be Chinese missionary for the rest of your mission. So okay, so we went there, and when you're learning Chinese, like usually what happens to missionaries, right? They go to like a language training center before they get sent out to the field, and you at least learn something, right? Like some basic stuff, how to pray, how to read your scriptures in Chinese, whatever else it is. And so we didn't have any of that, and so just kind of day one, you're thrown in there, and like all day, 24/7, you're speaking Chinese as much as you can. And in the beginning, it's not much. You're saying the same stuff over and over and over and over again, and then eventually you build up words. Yeah, you end up learning Chinese, and we spent a lot of time with the Chinese folks and loved it there. And the food was a lot better than English food, so that was a huge plus.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so Koloa, what really happened was, hey, the good old Lord was preparing you from those Oxford days, Zeus, where you were hanging out with all the Sangos over there, Zeus.
Hey, for real, man.
He's like, you've been around enough Chinese people right now.
Hey, for real. So no, but that's dope, Boos. Hey, man, I'm very, very ecstatic to hear that, Oos. You sound like a smart dude, Oos. You know what I'm saying? So hats to you, my brother.
No, but see, Koloa's being too humble right now, because that's not the whole story. So it turns out that, right, because European missions are like usually kind of hard to get baptisms, right? So this guy, towards the end of his mission, ends up baptizing a Chinese lady, right? Your only baptism was a Chinese lady, right, or something like that.
Oh no, no. So it was a little bit different. Europe is hard to get baptisms, but when you're a Chinese missionary, you're a little bit. We ended up baptizing like at least in our area that we were in, we ended up baptizing Chinese families. Most of the time, you baptize like a student, which is tough to grow an area because you baptize a student and then they graduate and you send them back to China, right? And then they go back and they do whatever. But we found a lady and her three kids and like one of our first weeks in there and she put up with my terrible Chinese and they ended up joining our church and they stayed active even to this day. And their kids are now like late teens, early 20s, which is crazy. We still keep in touch on Facebook. And we ended up quite a few Chinese folks that joined the church. So it was a cool thing. It's a cool experience.
So you still speak Chinese Mandarin?
Yeah.
可以，我会讲中文。
That's Jesus.
That's crazy, man.
Man, that's crazy, man.
Hey, so
That's dope.
shit.
Oh.
Shishi.
Come on, us.
Man. Yeah.
So wait, so Koloa, so hey, my bad, sis. I didn't mean to interrupt you
it's all
there.
good. It's all good.
So Koloa, now what I really want to know is how do you do well with the walk? No, that's what I really want to know. So, you know what I'm saying, dude? You got that walk over there, Oaks.
I do got a big one right now, so it's all seasoned in perfectly too.
Nice.
We make a lot of Chinese food. I know the best is going to the restaurants, man. You go to the restaurants and they're coming up. What do you want to order? And then you hit them out with the what's 香油第三个 on the menu. That's the best.
Man, that's wild, man. So like, man, it's cool that you talk about you learned Mandarin in the mission, and then when you got home, you learned Tongan. So like, what would be your advice for someone trying to learn a language? Because we've had a lot of discussion about a lot of Pacific Islanders that don't speak the language fluently, which is myself and a lot of the youth as well, who are our generation. So what would be your advice to our youth and that are trying to learn the language? What would be the best way to do that you found learning two different languages?
Yeah. So there's a couple things, and I'll keep it short. I could do a whole thing about this. I ended up. So I do think that there's something about languages. Some of it is there's something that's slightly natural about languages. I think I get this from my father. My father speaks 5 languages: speaks Tongan, English, Cambodian, Laotian, and Thai. But the natural part of it is it usually has to do with like your ear. So the good thing about people trying to learn their like heritage language, the language their parents speak, whatever else, is that most of the time we have a really, really good ear for it, right? Like you can hear it. When you hear it, you know it's Samoan or Tongan, it's not Spanish or Chinese. Whereas like if I heard like Russian, I don't know if I would be able to tell the difference between Russian and German and Latvian and Baltic. And like, I just don't have an ear for it. So the good thing about like learning a language that your family speaks is that you're going to have a good ear for it to start with, which is like, I think actually like being naturally good at languages. People who have good ears for like music or like our sound are usually better at languages. But like practically speaking, I think there's a couple things. One is I do think you have to have a motivation beyond like it would feel cool to do it, right? Which it does. Like it feels cool to like bust it out, like, you know, at your local family reunion or whatever else. For me, it was my grandparents were prolific journalers, and so they've had journals that they've written over the last 30 years while they were alive, but they're all written in Tongan. And so for me, I was like, I want to read my grandparents' journals, right? These are people who immigrated to the United States when they're in their 50s, right? Had to start an entire new life with 10 children. They ended up the people that I super admire, look up to, and you have all of this nuggets of wisdom in their life locked away in these journals. None of my aunties or uncles are like translating it, and so I was like, I want to learn the language and be able to translate it. So that was motivation. But in terms of practical experience, here's what you need to learn. Now, if you're Polynesian, you're lucky because the Polynesian languages are much simpler than most other languages. They don't have any conjugation. Their time, place, and noun object and noun adjective agreements are very, very simple. But the end all be all for languages, for learning any language as fast as you can, is learning vocabulary. So a lot of Polynesians, and I know it's about Polynesians, they do a couple things. They worry about learning book Tongan or book Samoan or book Maori because they don't want us to seem too cool or whatever. You cannot learn slang unless you know the book. Okay, you cannot know how to, when you can drop the participle ki, for example, in Tongan, if you don't understand the gihe structure. You can't. It doesn't make sense when you can put giate instead of gia for a proper noun versus a pronoun. But you do all that in texting and stuff like that, but you can't know what that is until you learn the book side. So first of all, you have to learn like the proper grammar and language, and then you can learn the slang. Now, the way you do that though, the way you learn any language really, really quickly is you do massive amounts of vocab. So I use an app called Anki, A-N-K-I. I've made Tongan ones on there, but I don't know if it's still up there. It's basically just a flashcard app on steroids. The trick for any language is that, and you can look up these studies, if you know about 1,500 or 2,000 words in a language, you'll be able to understand about 80 to 85% of any produced material. Okay, so imagine if your goal is 2,000 words, and for those of you who've served missions or speak a language, this will be familiar to you. If you 2,000 words in a language, you can understand about 80% of the material. If you learn 20 words a day, that's only 100 days. Okay, so between now and the next 100 days, that's by the end of the year. If you learn 20 words a day, then you can learn about you'll know about 85% of a language. And so vocabulary is the best thing, even over grammar. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to say the table is warm. Now, let's say you don't know any of the grammar. So you don't know where the object should go, where the verb should go, whatever else it is. But if you know all the words, so let's say you don't know any of the grammar, but you know the words. So let's say you say warm table is the, like, people can understand that, right? Like, now what if you don't know the word for table or warm or is? Now you're just like the blank, like you have no ability. So what I do is you learn the grammar. I mean, you learn the vocab, you put it in this flashcard app. The reason a flashcard app is good, you can do this on Quizlet too, is that it keeps track of what words you don't know. So you only spend about 10, 15 minutes a day. You can learn, like I got to a Tonga level where I could read like scriptures, like conference, have a conversation in like 2.5 months, 3 months. And then from there, then it's like fine tuning it. So that's the best way. Learn 2,000 words in your target language, and then you'll pick up the rest once you know those 2,000 words.
That's nice.
And it works. Yeah. It works. I've done it for Chinese, Tongan, and then my major at BYU for my undergrad was Arabic, and so I speak Arabic as well. I used to translate from Middle East.
Arabic and Middle Eastern Studies, right, Koloa? That was your major at BYU. Yeah, man.
So, Koloa, hold up, Boost. Hold up. Ahead, now you're just throwing me off, Sully, because you're a scholar. Nah, Sully. Hey, Koloa, you're a scholar, Zeus. So basically what you're saying is you and your pops, you got the gift of tongues, Zeus. Let's be real.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right, Loga.
So that's good. You can speak Arabic now. You can teach this guy his native language.
Hey, so Koloa, this guy's over here calling, dude. He's assalamu alaikum too, dude. What the heck, dude?
Hey, Koloa was the type of dude that would read the instructions from start to finish for anything, for any game, for any medicine. You know what I mean? Well, obviously medicine you need to, right? But man, that's basically what it is, man. This guy's a reader. Right?
So for real, hey, you done brought us back to schools with the vocab and the pronouns. So let's go.
Hey, Koloa, like I'm okay. So Tongan, right? Tongan was my first language, right? When I was little, but then it like kind of washed away, right? I've shared that here many times, but it's like, how would you kind of rate yours right now, like 1 to 10, like after all the studies?
Fitu bed.
Fitu? Mashi, don't have to live out there, Mashi. That's cool, bro.
Yeah, kama o fie le whakatonga ki ate ki mautolu. O lava, o polu he le whakatonga ke foi ki ai. Ka o pugai ha pola pedama ka pau ko fie tau noa whakaaki mo business, mo pule anga, mo ke hapa.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't speak any Tongan growing up, really, to be honest. We like
swear words. Dope,
my shit. That's right. It was my shit. Hey, right there, who's right? That's when he say my shit. You just had your calling and lecture made sure. Let's go, dude.
Say it, Loga. See the famous phrase.
My shit, they'll buy you, Let's freaking go, Sully. Hey, Sully, you know what?
I've known that phrase since I was like 2 years old. That's the phrase I didn't know.
Hey, Sully Koloa. Hey, Sully Koloa. With you saying all that stuff, dude, you're calling the next make sure is high up there, dude. Let's freaking go, dude.
No, but I understand everything you said, man.
All right. Man, that's a great example. Like, I feel like that is a very easily obtainable goal, a realistic goal that people can set. Like you said, 20 words a day for 100 days. I mean, that right there is an easy goal for people to kind of see, like, oh, dang, I can be 80% fluent by learning vocabulary, just 20 words a day. So, man, I'm gonna try that. I gotta commit to that and see if I can get to where Koloa says, man. Well, I'm sure if I do 20 words a day, I know I'll get to where he's saying. So, but that's cool to put it in a realistic terms, man.
What about Spanish, Koloa? Do you speak Spanish?
No, I don't speak English. I know it's like the language that's actually the most spoken in the U.S. So like I don't speak English.
Oh man, that's crazy, man.
Hey, So like Koloa, that's so cool. You're like the ChatGPT of Tonga. So let's go, dude.
Hey, for real, man.
Yeah. So I mean, since we're kind of on the topic of like culture and stuff, well, not really, but I kind of want to like touch up on things. So Koloa, so you've been married, right? About what, almost 10 years now? and you have 5 beautiful blessings. You have 3 boys, 2 girls. How has it been kind of shuffling your life with like having gone to like law school of Yale, right? And then doing your career right now? Like how's it going? Like as far as like shuffling your schedule around and trying to spend time with your children. I'm not sure if you have a calling in church right now, but just
Yeah,
like
I teach early morning seminary, 5:30 a.m. seminary.
Oh man, we gotta get you to sleep, bro.
Hey, hey, tell it, bro.
yeah, my bad,
Yeah.
Koloa.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a good question. And I think, look, it's something that we all grapple with, right? Like, regardless of, you go to law school or, you're working a job, like it's something that you all, and I think I was taught this principle by a leader of mine, church-wise. So there's like 3 buckets, right? You have like the professional stuff that you got to provide for the family and all that kind of stuff. And then you have the family, spending time with them. It's no good to the kids, right? If you're gone 24/7, right? You got to be there for them. And then you have church responsibilities, things like that. And you also have just your own self, right? Trying not to gain too much weight, right? Especially during law school, put on the like 20 pounds in law school. So like, how do you balance all that? And I remember talking to a church leader of mine, asking him about it and being like, man, this was rough. Because when I was in law school, I also at the time, we started a company while still in law school. And so it was like trying to start this company, get it off the ground. I was an elders quorum president at the time, and then with kids, and it was just kind of hectic. And I remember he said something that stayed with me. And he goes, there's a principle, because a lot of people talk about like work-life balance, right? Trying to balance everything like a scale. And he goes, in my experience, it's not really how it works. He goes, it's this principle of selective neglect. He goes, what I mean by that is at any given point, it is true that one part of your life is going to be neglected, right? He's like, it's impossible for that to be right. You have there are times where you had months at work where I was like, I get home at like 10 p.m., right? And I go to sleep and wake up at 6 or 7, and then we go back. And like during that time, there is no balance. And it would be kind of weird to try to force balance into that, because there's not really much balance. But then you have to balance that at a time where your work side, you're not doing that every time. Maybe you're able to come home for lunches, and you're able to take some time off, and you're able to take weekends off, and you're able to take a vacation here and there and be with the family. Like, and then there are times where the church needs you, and you got to be there all in, full on meetings all the time. And then there are times where they don't need you, and you can delegate it off to someone else, or like, hey, someone else can go help this guy move this time. I don't need to be there for everyone. Like, and so I think there's, rather than being like on any given day, do I have balance? To me, it's like over a little bit longer timeline, like on every week, do I have balance, or every month? And there are just times where it's not going to be balanced. And I learned that like you just have to kind of give as much as you can in one area. And then when there's time where you kind of have to make it up in other areas. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing, this is just a little like productivity thing that I learned, which is, especially when you're trying to balance like working and all that, trying to be productive in the 24 hours we all have, which is you should. There was a time when I was in law school, and I was trying to figure all this stuff out, and we were starting the company, and I was going to law school, and had church callings, and my wife was pregnant with our 4th kid, and all the rest of it. And I realized, I remember writing down all the tasks that I had to do in a day. And what I wanted to do is what you want to do in order to give yourself a little bit more time is you want to match tasks that need high quality time with the high quality time that you have, and tasks that need low quality time with low quality time. So I'll give you an example. I'll get like 100 to 150 texts a day, right? That's outside of emails. I get about 400 or 500 emails a day. Responding to texts and emails is not something I should be doing when I'm sitting at a computer and I have all the time, like quiet, deep time to work. Those responding to texts and emails are things that I should be doing when I'm eating lunch, when I'm waiting in line for something, when I'm like, because you can do that on the go. But when I'm like drafting a contract or marking up a contract, I need to be doing that in a time when I'm like sitting down, I have my whole computer, I have my screens, and that's the kind of stuff. So I see people, one of the reasons why I think they're not able to get as much out of the time as they have is that they take things that really could be done on the go, and you're in between moments where you have a minute here, 2 minutes there, 3 minutes there, and they put it in like their prime working time, which is when you're sitting down, no one's bothering you, and you can actually do like the deeper work. And so for me, that helps me like be able to get through emails, get through text, all that kind of stuff, while also like doing the other important work, drafting, doing the financial models, like all the other kind of stuff, and making sure I don't mix those up. Because if I just spend my time on my computer answering texts and emails all day long, then when do I have time to do the financial models and the contracts? I can't do that when I'm waiting in McDonald's in line. I can't mark up a contract in a 10-minute there, but I can send a text within a minute or two.
Okay.
No, that's great advice, man. And so like what kind of prompted you to like start up an investment firm, like, and start the business? Like what was it that led to that? I know you were in law school, but what specifically for this kind of firm to do that?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that happened before that. So when I was in law school, I worked for about a year and a half for a New York firm and we did venture capital. And so I was working for someone else's firm. And basically, venture capital, what venture capital is you raise money from a lot of investors and you invest in startups. So like if you see Shark Tank, all those guys are VCs. But imagine it's a company. Instead of Mark Cuban writing a check, it's a big company writing a check. And so it's not just one guy making a decision. That the startup comes in, pitches to you. Usually we're in New York, and then there's like 12 of us that are part of that decision-making process and asking questions or whatever else it is. And so I did that for a year and a half, and frankly, it was like super, super fun, and it was really exciting. And then so that kind of got me in the head of like maybe I don't want to go into law because it's also a lot more lucrative. Some of the more famous examples are Peter Thiel. He invested, I think it was 500,000 into Facebook and turned into like a $400 million. Like some of these, like right, getting in early on some of these big companies. And so it was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then what really happened is 2021 hits, and two things are happening that motivated why we started the company and when. One is my dad got really, really sick in December of 2020 and in January of 2021. So he was hospitalized for a little over a month. We weren't sure if he was going to make it or not. And so And I always wanted to work with my father. We have a good relationship. And so I was like, originally our plan was like in 10 years, like, okay, I'll go do this other thing, whatever. And then I'll come back together and start a company in 10 years. So one is he got sick. And so I was kind of worried about his health and longevity. And the second thing that happened was COVID was still ravaging, right, the United States and the world. And so when you're trying to put together an investment firm, you have to have an investment thesis. That's basically what are you investing in and why, right? And so with COVID happening, it was like, so maybe a little background. My father is Tongan, right? He came to the United States. He's an immigrant. And for most of my life, maybe my entire life, he's worked in hotels. So he started, the very first hotel he worked at was a Holiday Inn right by Disneyland. He would drive the shuttle to and from Disneyland to the park, right? And you get the shuttles on, those free shuttles that the hotels offer, and you live off the tips. That was the very first job in the hotel industry. And then over the next 20 years, he worked his way up, shuttle driver. Then he worked on the front desk, and then controller, general manager. And then he was on a corporate level over several hotels for this company. And so he went in hotels his whole life. COVID is happening, which tanks hotels, right? Like hotels shut down, right? Because being in California, you guys saw it worse than almost anyone, right? Where it's like you couldn't travel, hotel rooms couldn't be clean, you couldn't even have, so there were a certain number of people that couldn't be in a building at any one time. Remember all that kind of stuff. And so hotels that were making like $30-40 million in 2019, some of them were shutting down completely in 2020, 2021. And so what happens to the value goes down. And so if you're an investor and you're wanting to put together an investment firm, there's almost no time like 2020, 2021 to start an investment firm that invests in hotels. It's about the best time to do that. You can't wait 10 years. It's in fact, it was even better than the great financial crisis in 2007, 2008 in terms of investors. So in terms of like comparison, the COVID impact on hotels is 3 times as bad as 2007, 2008 was on hotels. That's how bad it was. And so if you're like, I want to buy hotels for a discount, right? Because the whole model of an investment firm is you raise money from investors, you go and buy properties or companies, whatever else you're buying, you try to improve them, and then you sell it for more than you bought it for, and then you share the profits with the investors, right? And you split it. And so what you're looking for is opportunities where there are things that have down in value, right? Buying it at a discount, and then as they come up in value, you sell them again, right? And so we're like, okay, a couple things are happening. One, I'm worried about my dad's health in 2021. And I always wanted to work with him on the company side. He could bring the hotel expertise. And at that point, I had already worked at an investment firm and kind of knew how that worked on like putting together investment process, how the legal side of it worked, all that kind of stuff. So he had hotel experience. I'll bring like the finance side and legal side. And this is the best time in probably at least 50, 60 years to buy hotels. So what do? We start Wolfgramm Capital December 1st, 2021. And so we bought, like I said, over the last 3 years, we bought well over $500 million worth of real estate. Probably in the first 6 months, we bought in over $100 million. I grew to $100 million our first maybe 8 months, 9 months on time frame. And then we've kind of been growing steadily since then.
That's awesome, man. That's amazing, bro. Congrats on that.
So that is amazing, dude. Let's go, dude. So it's, man, I think one thing about me, Oos, I mean, I'm so amazed that when you're speaking to us, Oos, it's like I'm really over here now. I just want to listen to you now, Oos, because it's like it's awesome, Oos, that you're coming up with all these ideas, bro. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then you're using it to your advantage to where not only it's blessed you, so that, but you incorporate it to help it to bless your family, especially your pops too. So like, a lot like I grew up, I didn't really have I had a father figure, shout out to my pops, but I don't know who my dad is. So for you to be able to have that relationship with your pops and implement your work, your hard work for the remembrance that they looked out for you. So Toko, that's love right there, brother. For real, man.
No, I appreciate that. And I do think that I think there's, so like, I guess I want to make this applicable to anyone who's listening. There are opportunities, like the scenario that a first or second generation American Polynesian should be thinking about. If I were to give this is my advice I usually give people ask kind of how do I start a company? Where should I start? So like, I think that there's this really nice, like, symbiotic relationship between what I think of as like the boots and the suits of a company. And I think if you're a Polynesian kid, you should be thinking this way if you want to start a company that can grow really fast. And that is, so on the boot side, we think of this as like the operators, right? And so we think like, I'll give examples that will, for us that I know, like if I'm a Polynesian kid growing up in Santa or Orange County, and this is how I exactly thought about my own company was, what are the areas that I have any advantage in just off of who I know or where I'm at? Okay, so for example, before we started Wolfgramm Capital, I had a bunch of other ideas of things I wanted to start and kind of figuring this. And what I did is I listed out every single person I knew and any advantage that might give me. So for example, my brother is in the military and he's a doctor. And so I wrote that, my brother is military and doctor, like, it's going to be a lot easier for me to add, not only was he in the military, he worked in part of the like weapons divisions. And so he invented some like C4 stuff and other things. So I was like, okay, what that means then is that he knows if I were going to invent some kind of weapon structure or something, like it's a lot easier for me to get in front of the Air Force weapons department than anyone like in my neighborhood, right? Like because I have a brother who worked with the weapons department at the Air Force, right? And so if I wanted to create a weapon, like versus some random kid who like just starts a weapons company or something like that, like it's gonna be a lot harder for them to get that contact. And so what I did is I made a list of all the people I know and all the things like different advantages. So I had my brother on there, I had like my dad with like hotels, I had like an uncle who's a lawyer. I had a cousin who was a chaplain, who was like a religious chaplain. So I made all this list of all these people. I had friends who were, and one friend was working at SpaceX at the time from Oxford. And I had all these people I knew and listed them out. I had a grandma who like worked in nursing homes and stuff like that. And so I had all this list. And I started there and I was thinking, okay, how can I take what I've learned, which is like kind of more of like the business, financial, legal side, and like which of these areas do I have the most advantage in? And so, and that's like the boot side of like the people who like know how to operate companies. And so if you're a Polynesian kid, it might be like construction company, right? How many of us know people who are in a construction company, tiling, roofing, landscaping, drywall, plumbing, tiling, like all these kind of companies, right? Those kind of companies, by the way, like one of those companies have done well, not saying done well like they're not doing well, if scaled properly, can become 10, 15, $20 million companies. These are not small companies. Like they don't have to be small companies, right? There are cleaning companies, right? People go around and clean people's houses that are worth 50, $60 million. Okay. So these aren't necessarily have to be small businesses. Like we think about small businesses as like someone doing something on the side. These can be huge, huge companies. And so if I'm a kid, what I should be thinking is I'm thinking, okay, what does my parents, my uncles do? Let's say they do landscaping, roofing, whatever else it is. And then how can I take my education, being raised and born in America and kind of knowing how some of this stuff works, whether that's marketing, whether that's how to even run processes and bookings and reschedulings and all that kind of stuff and running teams. How can I take that and apply it to what they're doing and be able to scale it a lot bigger, right? And so that was like my whole thing was like, yeah, there's some stuff I learned at Yale, some connections I had, some networking stuff, some things I learned about how the business world works, how investment firms work, raising money, deploying money, thinking about portfolio management. How do you think about where you should invest and when, all this kind of stuff. I said, okay, where should I apply that? Well, even though my dad didn't own a hotel, he was working for a hotel company. Like he knows the guys at Marriott. He knows the guys at Hilton. He knows where to buy soap for a hotel. He knows where to buy linen for a hotel. He knows where to buy the hotel candy. Like he knows that stuff, right? And so if you're a kid and your father works in construction, like your dad knows a lot of people who work in that area. Obviously, he's been working there for 30 or 40 years, right? He knows where they source materials. He knows how a bid project works. He knows how bids work. He knows how contingencies work and overhead and profiting conditions, project management. He knows how these things work, but he may not be able to, his background may not be in being like scaling businesses. So if you can learn how to do that, then you work with your father, your mother, your aunt, your uncle, and you can scale that business from being $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year. Like it doesn't take long to become a $2, $3, $4 million a year company. And now you're like really making a difference in your family's financial life. And so that's like the suit side of like the business, financial, legal side. And so I think that there's like a lot of untapped opportunity when I see kids who like my parents not a fancy lawyer or doctor, they're like a cleaning lady. I'm like, do you know how many cleaning companies I know that do well, that do like $100,000 a month? Like I know like 15 of them, and it's just in their local area. And they just kill it because they know how to run Facebook ads. They know how to do marketing. They know how to do scheduling. They know how to hire. It's like, those are things that you could apply to your mom's company, right? And show her how to do it. And then you guys work on it together. And now you have a $2, $3, $4 million business.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. That's awesome, dude.
You know how like our podcast, man, is like for the youth, but like Alonga said, man, it's like, oh, this is for us now too. All of us is just listening intently, man. And man, this is great stuff, Koloa. We appreciate your time, Moose.
That is pretty dope, though, man. I mean, I never thought of it like that. It was for you. It's like, all right, if my parents are doing this, let me go ahead and think outside the box, Zeus, and then do this to bring it up higher. It's like, what? I didn't even think of that. It was like, dang.
Yeah, man, it's great stuff. So like I said, we just appreciate how we brought you on to be just kind of share your story and your success and how your journey led you to where you are today and to kind of inspire the youth. But really, you're inspiring us, man. And I feel like this episode just as much for us and the adults, man, and all the Pacific Islanders can really kind of get out of that mindset of we're kind of stuck. Like, and even though our parents, they did like hard labor jobs and stuff like that, we can utilize their knowledge that they've built and be able to build something that's even better. So, man, that's awesome, man. Thank you.
I'll say that it does take work, like just like our parents, right? You probably remember this too. Like I remember my dad, especially in the early years, he'd wake up before any of us were awake, right? Come home after we were asleep, right? And that's how they learn their trade, right? That's how they learn what they're doing. The temptation is for those on the other side, being like, oh, I can take that company and make it big. Is that the temptation is that it won't take the same amount of work and dedication. But that's I think that's where the error comes. So it's not enough to just be like, oh, I'm an American born. I speak English way better than my parents. Therefore, I can build a big company. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Like there's a lot of really, really smart people out there, and you're going to be competing with them. And so the same way that your parents woke up at 5 a.m. and came home at 12 p.m. for decades to learn what they do, like it's going to take you some time and some dedication and thousands of hours to learn how to build that company up and how to scale it. And it's not as easy as filming a reel on Instagram and all of a sudden you have 500,000 customers wanting to your company to clean their house. Like, so it takes just as much dedication to learning that side of it as the other side. But I do think it's an opportunity where you can get a step ahead. Like someone who has a mom who cleans houses is going to have a much better chance of starting a company that does cleaning homes than I do. I have no contacts in that space. I don't even know how long it takes to clean a home. I don't know how to price whether it's a 5-bedroom versus a 3-bedroom versus a 2-bathroom. Whereas a mom who cleans, immediately they're thinking, okay, it takes me 10 minutes to do this kind of bathroom and 40 minutes. And they have all that information. It's just about kind of scaling it and bringing that other side, the suit side. So I think that's why I think about like the suits and the boots coming together, especially for immigrant children. I think that's how you build. And by the way, almost every single big company, it usually is like a 2-generation thing. Marriott's, his father, J.W. Marriott, that's not when the company became big. It was under Bill Marriott, it became $1 billion company. So the father started Hot Shops, the restaurants. Bill Marriott put it into hotels and became $1 billion company. Hilton's, same thing. Walmart, it's like a lot of the big companies we know, it's not necessarily the first generation. It was like the first generation learned how to do it. The second generation came up and was solid with their education and then blew it up.
Yeah, that reminds me, like my dad still does yate on the side just because he's bored. I mean, he wants to stay young, so he wants to move around and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, for extra money. And then he'll drag me along. He'll call me and say, hey, what are you doing? So I'm at home with my kids. He's like, get up at 5 a.m. and meet me at my house. Like, Dad, I have plans with like my son is a soccer game. I don't care. Tell your wife to leave us alone and come to my house. Like, you're talking dads, right? Well, my dad particularly. So I meet him and I go out there with him. I'm like, Dad, why didn't you was going out there with my dad growing up? He never taught us like the skill, right? And every time he tried to teach us, move out of the way. You're taking forever, or you're wasting my time. And then like now, like fast forwarding 20 years, 30 years later, it's like, Dad, like today, for example, or yesterday, I told Dad, why couldn't you just teach me and my brothers like how to do it? Because I don't want you guys to do this job. You know what I mean? The stuff like that. You know what I mean? I want you guys to be better. But it still would have been cool to like know that kind of skill, right? With the information we have now. You know what I mean? Like what you mentioned, utilizing, like the skills that we have as far as technology and marketing and stuff. But I don't know. That's just something that came to mind, right? Coming from my dad.
Yeah.
Tell you to take advantage.
And it is actually one of the things that I think is particular to Polynesians because when I know a lot of Asian folks, right? Asians are the most successful, not just minority, the most successful racial group in the United States. Right?
Yeah.
That's pumping both like Southeast Asian and but let's just say Asians in general. The question is like why? And I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. I don't pretend to be a sociologist or anything like that, but one of the things I do see is there's like there are a couple of things. One is the education side. I think that they really focus on education, obviously, over sports. And I'm not saying that you can't do both. I think sports is a great backup to have, unless you're like godly talented, in which case like just go to sports and that's the quickest path. But like, and it's not just like the education writ large. I think part of the problems that I see with, and this is like just like this might be controversial, so I don't know.
All good.
I apologize.
I apologize. Go ahead.
I have two controversial takes when it comes to this. One is not all education is created equal, and that doesn't have to do with what school you go to, but it's what you learn. I will take someone who, Asian families in general tend to be hyper focused on education that leads to good job outcomes. And so they're like, I don't want you to just go to college to get a degree. Like, there's no point in going to college learning how to draw, right? Like, you can do that at home. Like, that's why they say like the classic like engineer, doctor, lawyer, right? Like the things that you can get jobs in. So I do think that there should be a focus on. Sometimes I see a focus in Polynesian families of just like going to school, like just go to school, just get your degree, and that's good. And I think that maybe that comes from like a perspective of it doesn't really have like colleges, right? They don't have post-secondary education. I think there's like one, but most people don't go to it. I think New Zealand has a couple, obviously, and Australia does and everything else. But most of the time, there's idea just like go to like secondary education. That's enough. And I think that's not the case anymore. That might have been the case 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Today, it's simply not the case that having a college degree necessarily puts you in a better position, especially when you're going in to get that college degree. So one is like be really mindful about the money and time that you're investing into that college degree and make sure that's going to pay out in the back end. The second thing, and this is where it's even maybe more controversial, is like I don't necessarily believe in following your passions. I think you should follow the thing that you're good at, and that will become your passion for a couple of reasons. One is it's fun to be good at something. It's not necessarily, you're not always good at the things that are fun, right? It's like I like to play pickleball, right? And like I'm fine at it, but I'm not like great at it, right? But then I played other sports where like I played some hockey, and in terms of like for how long I played and stuff like that, like I'm really good at hockey, and it just had to do with like whatever hand-eye coordinate, whatever it is. And guess what? I like to play more often? Hockey, right? Even though it's just fun to be good at stuff. And so I think when they're looking at like what job you want to do and all that kind of stuff, it's sometimes I see people like, oh, like, but I want to start like doggy wash company because I just love dogs. And it's like, okay, but your family owns a restaurant and you could take over that restaurant and probably be like the best Chinese restaurant in town. I'm like, no, but like I love wash dogs. I'm like, that's a stupid thing. That's a stupid decision. Like I wouldn't make that decision. I would go to the restaurant and kill it in the restaurant, and you can wash dogs on the side. Like do something that you're good at first, and then figure out the things that you enjoy, because especially in business, at the end of the day, like the guy who runs a freaking toilet paper company, and it's like the biggest toilet paper company in the world, like he doesn't care about toilet paper. Like he cares about like the business fundamentals. It's the same whether you're running a toilet paper company or whether you're running freaking Tesla. Like it's honestly at the end of the day, it's the same. You're managing profit, you're managing revenues, you're managing employees, you're managing all that kind of stuff. And so solving for what you're going to be better at and what you're going to be able to make more money at, I think is again, controversial, is going to be the better long-term outcomes than doing something that you're passionate about and then working at McDonald's in 10 years.
All right. Yeah, when you mentioned the restaurant, like the dog thing, just don't be like the Tongans and eating the dogs.
You can do both.
Don't combine those passions, bro. Loving the dogs and making them part of the restaurant.
Silly, what the heck, dude?
That's a controversial take too. You go to a restaurant, and you look at the menu, like, man, this looks like it's a.
Oh man!
No, but that's a really good insight, Koloa. Man, this my head kind of hurts.
Yeah. Nah, man, no, I don't think those are controversial at all either, man. I think those are very sound, and they make sense. Yeah. Those takes. I mean, you're the one that's successful, so you're just kind of taking what you know. Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you for that. Sorry. But and another thing that I kind of caught, like from you sharing your just experiences and stuff, and like what I liked the most was you saying that not only the knowledge and stuff that you need to kind of like start a company, but also the connections. Like how you said your dad, he knows people, like he knows these people in that specific industry. And so I think connections are also like, you don't really know it, or like for us Polynesians, we don't really look to always make connections with that, like with that in mind. Like, oh, I made this connection with this person, so now I know like that I can reach out to them for help with this, because like something that I found. So now me and my wife and my family, we're in a Palangi ward now, but we grew up in the Samoan ward. And so like one of the things I found, like whenever we meet like Palangis, they always ask like, "Oh, so what do you do for work?" And but like in Polynesians, that's never like we like I don't know what people do for work, man, in most of the Samoan ward, but I've grown up with them and lived with them like forever, and I don't know what they do. But then in the Palangi ward, the first thing they always ask, "Oh, so what do you do for work?" And I was like, "Oh man." And but now I understand it's like a lot of times that they do that to make those connections and be like, oh, he said that he does this for work. Let me make that connection and try to expand like the business and stuff for that. So that's cool, man. That's great insight, and I appreciate that.
It's I have, I have family members who I don't even know what they do for work. No, I'm thinking of uncles and aunties and cousins.
So like, no, hey, so like, they're over there asking you that in the war, Zeus, to think like, what do you do for work? Then they're thinking to themselves, how can I take this guy's job away from him? No, I'm just kidding, Zeus.
Yeah.
This
is
a cultural point, though. This is actually an important cultural point, and maybe this is where it gets controversial. And if not, that's okay too. I think that so I'm half, right? My dad is Tongan, my dad's full Tongan, my mom is full white, like blonde hair, blue eye, American, and I think that I see challenges, and look, both cultures have I would say like in terms of being raised, we did a lot of Tongan stuff, what we ate and how we were raised and other things, but not everything. There's certain things that my parents thought were not so beneficial on the Polynesian side, and so we didn't do all those things. But I think that one of the things that I think has benefited me and my siblings, and when I just kind of look and kind of see how things turn out, is, and this is true for everyone, not just for Polynesians, but I think Polynesians tend to do this as well, especially because we're kind of a smaller minority group, right? Like we're not like Asians or African Americans or whatever else, where we have like millions of people that like we typically are going to be a small group in any given high school, unless you're in, I don't know, West Valley or Palo. Like most high schools, you might have what, like 10, 12, even in like California, you have maybe a couple dozen at most. And so what ends up happening, I think, is one of the challenges I sometimes see Polynesians when they get into the business world, and I've worked with some Polynesians who are been in business, actually a fair amount of them, I probably know most of them that are, especially ones coming out of Utah. And that is, if it's kind of obvious usually if they have been around non-Polynesians a lot growing up or not. And I think when you get people who are only ever around Polynesians, they can struggle with like even interpersonal relationships when they're around non-Polynesians, and that can hurt them when it comes to business, because frankly in business, most of the time it's not going to be Polynesians. Like most of the time you're in a boardroom, whatever else. And I'm not saying it's always white people, but it's usually not Polynesians. And that's not because Polynesians aren't successful or anything like that. It's just because, well, there's 100,000 Tongans, period. Like in the US, there's 100,000 in Tonga. I think there's 150, 200,000 in the US. Okay. Samoans, I think it's a little bit more than that. And then if you add Fijians and everything else, it's like slightly more. But given the entire 300 million people in the population of the US, less than 1% of that is Polynesian, something like that. So anywhere you go, right, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever else it is, you're typically not going to be working around Polynesians. So if you like only feel comfortable around Polynesians, you only feel comfortable having dinner with Polynesians and talking with Polynesians and talking about the things that Polynesians talk about, I think it can become a ceiling for yourself when you go out and do other things outside of your Polynesian community. And so I think that, and that was something that like, it's the reason why my parents, frankly, did not have us attend Polynesian wards. And that was also true for my grandparents. My grandparents came over to the United States, they didn't speak any English, and they created the very first Tongan unit in Palo Alto. And the state president asked my grandparents if they wanted to attend, and they said no. They said, we'd rather have our kids grow up in Palo Alto in the Palangi wards, because we want them to learn from the Palangis what it's like to be an American. And that was like very controversial at that time. Even in their community in Palo Alto, they were like, now, and that may be like, I don't know if that's necessarily the case now today where there's people in high school and everything else, but I'm just saying there's one view, a point, this is the viewpoint. And like, I talked to my dad, and he's like, it's really interesting. They grew up in Palo Alto. And so because they went to the Palangi ward, he's like, we had like CEOs of like huge companies that were like our young men's presidents. And he's like, so what happened is we would sit in meetings with them, and we would see how they put together agendas for a meeting. And we would see how they managed the meeting and took notes and did follow-ups, and how they ran an organization, how they thought about budgets, right? How they thought about delegation, how they thought about managing the ward's goals and incorporating that into the interior team's goals. And he's like, I learned all that in church, mixing with people who were completely outside of my faith, right? And maybe they liked us, maybe they didn't. Like, that didn't really matter, is I learned how they ran. And so I think that there's a benefit to that like intermixing. And by the way, there's also the benefit on the flip side. Like Cece will know this. Our Tongan steak, they usually were one of the lowest earning steaks, but they paid the most tithing and most fast offerings. They were the most generous. They had the most people on missions. They baptized them up. So there was something for the other wards to learn about the Polynesian culture and how to invite people in and how to be inviting and how to be generous with what you have and like how to show up. Like all those kind of things were true too. But I think it's also true for us that we can learn things from other cultures. And I do think that sometimes the Polynesians, and I feel this way sometimes, I'm like, we're the greatest race on earth. Right? Like sometimes. And so sometimes I feel like it can sometimes be a hinder to say, well, we might be the greatest race on earth, but let's absorb all the other great stuff that other people have and let's incorporate that in. So that's just a little.
No, that's literally oh man. I'm really glad you brought that up. Like no joke, I was thinking about this today, about how like we're all like just a melting pot of like just different cultures, upbringings, right? Perspectives. Like we all come together. And I also think that's like the beauty of like having mixed steaks, like Palangis, Samoan, Tongans, is like we all come together and just kind of share culture and ideas. And I also do see like the other side of it, right? Where there could be like a little bashing and stuff due to like misunderstanding, right? Because certain people were raised like a certain way or a different way, and vice versa. But I do believe that when we humble ourselves, right? Because like in Tongan culture, we do believe in the 4 pillars, right? Like humility, right? And just good relations. I always forget the other two, my bad. But anyways, but you understand what I'm trying to say? So it's just like that's just whakapapa and right. And that's just the beauty of like the gospel, of like what we learn from it. It's humility at the end of the day, being Christ-like, right? Because naturally we think not the worst, but I'm better than that guy. Oh, I'm better than him. I have better things. But when we apply like gospel principles into our daily lives, it humbles us and it reminds us, hey, like where we come from. You know what I mean? It reminds us to be Christ-like and to be humble and to just be loving, caring, and kind, right, to others, regardless of like upbringing or race or perspective or even political views and whatnot. So just wanted to share
that. This came to this like really hit home for me when we went to Tonga for the first time. So the first time I went to Tonga was in 2019, and I remember having the thought. I remember like, okay, so what would happen? Like, how would you feel if there was a Palangi guy who came to Vava'u, right? And we went to Vava'u, was like the bush, right? Like Longamapu, which is like for all the Longamapu guys out there, like there's nothing out there, right? It's just like there's like one road that runs through town. There's like one school at the end, and that's it. And I was like, imagine there's a white guy that comes out, and he's like I'm not going to wear any of the I'm not going to eat any of the local food. I'm not going to acquire any of the local personality or characteristics. Like I'm a Texan or whatever he's from, and that's all I'm in. I'm going to push everything else away. You think he'll be successful in Vava'u? You think he'll be successful in Longamapu? No, of course not. So sometimes I see that with Tongans coming here, and it's like I'm Hateho, I'm Vava'u Kiai, and like okay, it's good to be proud of where you're from. But in the same way that you look at a Tongan guy who's like, oh, I refuse to eat any pork that's not made by whatever. It's like, that's in some ways we're being that way to the culture that we're in, right? We're in American culture. If you want to succeed, you take what's good about the Tongan culture, but you have to, at the end of the day, you're succeeding in American culture. And American culture doesn't mean white culture, right? Like you said, it's a melting pot. So, and I think it's where Polynesians actually have a very strong advantage, that they're good at like bringing rooms together, right? They're good at being able to make people feel comfortable and welcome. Yeah. And that's a skill that's valuable, like in the business side, right? When you have a meeting and be able to be a little bit loose, crack a joke here, like have people feel comfortable in the meeting, like people want to work with you. That's huge. Like when I say huge, there's deals that we've done that are worth over $100 million, that most of the reason that deal got done when they could choose other people to do that deal with was because they like being around us. They like being in the room with us. And so when I say that stuff is valuable, I'm not just saying it's valuable in some ephemeral sense. I mean, it's valuable also for business side.
Yeah, so it's Koloa, it's so true, what you just said right now. So it came to think, man, like when I think of polys in general, it's like you said, it's the bond or the good relationship that you have with that Polynesians brings to other people. And they always say Samoans or Tongans, they say that same word, you're just happy people. So like, and that's so true. So Koloa, you could, I mean, I don't know if this happened in your guys' company, but building that relationship with the customer, and bringing in the friendship. So that right there, I truly believe, Oos, is a game changer. Because I'm the same way, Oos. I ain't got no businesses or anything like that, but I definitely like to bring happiness to people, Oos. And like you said, Oos, like even though like By the way, chat, I don't even know Koloa. I just met this guy right here, but it's the fact that, like he said, it's the greeting and meeting him or cracking a joke here and there. It's what creates a friendship, dude. And that right there, that bond can't be broken because then you start moving up in different levels, and like you said yourself, dude, you're able to work with people who like CEOs and stuff like that, and they like that the atmosphere that you bring around. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, and it really is like being able to like assimilate into the culture, you know, and again, this is my personal, like, sometimes I think that we can be like, if I had to say, what are the temptations for Polynesians specifically in the business world that we should avoid? It'd be a couple. One would be too casual in our language and in our dress. So we generally are casual kind of folks, right? Like wear slippers, dupenu, whatever else. That's fine. But when you show up to a business meeting, like suit and tie, you should be suit and tie, right? Like, especially if you're trying to prove something. Like, so I've seen people show up and they're trying to act like they're the big CEO, like wear like the slacks and the t-shirt when they're like still trying to make it. And it's like, dude, that's not the time to be the guy in your pajamas. When you're Mark Zuckerberg, then you wear your pajamas, right? But until then, you're in the suit and tie, buddy. Like, or like casualness in speech. It's like, again, we're not overly like flowery or eloquent in our language. Although you get some of the Tongan speakers who are like that, especially when they're speaking like Leho Aiki and some of that stuff, where they get really, really.
Yeah.
But it's, for whatever reason, when we speak English, it can be like really casual, and then that's, again, it's not bad to do. But when you're in a boardroom and you're giving a presentation or whatever else, like there's a skill of just being able to like upscale that language, and that's not being fake. I think that's the other thing we try fiat palangi, right? That's not a good thing to call someone, right? It's not a. Yeah. And so that mindset of like, you're trying to be fiat palangi wearing the suit and tie and trying to speak. It's like, okay, well, do you want to be fiat broke or do you want to be like, so it's so I do think that there's like a couple temptations like that we just have to be aware of when working in, like, frankly, an American business culture. And look, if we were doing business in Tonga, it probably looked very different. I don't know much about that. So I'm just talking about business culture in America.
Yeah. So I like that you said that we have to, like, not so much Palangi culture, but American culture, because American culture is different. Like, we all have our different cultures, and we all come together to make America and build America. And I think that's important to understand for our Pacific Islander people, that it's not bad to take the good things from our culture, but then also take the good things from the American culture and be able to make more of an impact. Because with you, Koloa, being successful and owning your own business, and it's a multi-million-dollar business, I mean, now you're able to impact more people than the regular average person. And so I felt like it's important for us to kind of take that and be able to apply that and kind of get that mentality out of believing, well, like you said, we are the best race. Polynesians are the best, man. But we have to be humble and be able to accept the good things that come from the American culture, and be able to kind of do like how you mentioned the Sangas, the Asians, man. They're the most successful in America, and they have their own culture. And they haven't gone away from their culture, but they just kind of take the best of what they know is the best of the American culture and take advantage of that and melt it into their own culture. So, man, it's a lot of good information. There's a lot of great knowledge, man.
Yeah, just a matter of like remembering where you're from.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Keeping like the values from both your own culture, and then also respecting and valuing the values and cultures of America.
Yeah,
because it's the American values that we appreciate, right? This land where we can like worship freely, you know, and do not so much do what we want. In a sense, do what we want, right? But where there's more opportunity, right? Yeah. And so, just kind of like also stemming from that. So, through all these things, Koloa, right? All these things that you've gone through in your life, right? Cancer, participating in being a part of the Olympics, starting your own nonprofit, serving a mission, all these things that you went through your life, law school, being there for when your children were born, when you got married, being in the sealing room. Behind all these successful stories, memorable stories, there's always hardships. What went through your mind during the hardest times throughout all these years? Like, what motivated you to keep going?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's a couple of things when it comes to motivation, and motivation is difficult, right? Because it comes from a lot of different reasons and different sources. I think there's a couple answers to this question for me, at least, and that is, I I really did care, and I still do care. And again, maybe it hit home more when I went back to Tonga for the first time, and I actually went back with my father, and it was the first time my father had been back. My father came in 1972. He had never went back, and we went back together in 2019. And we went back, and we went to where he was born, where our family grew up. We took the boat ride from Tongatapu all the way up to Niua, like did the whole thing, and like I do care about my grandparents made a decision, right, 1972 to leave, and they're in their 50s. I think my grandpa was 55. Imagine being 55 years old, your entire life, your business, your uta, everything that you know is in Tonga, and you say, I want to go to the United States, land of opportunity for my kids and my grandkids and their kids to have greater opportunities than they could have here at the time they were living in Vava'u. And so like I struggle when I see sometimes Polynesians, or not just Polynesians, any groups that come from immigrant families, and it almost seems like not only has the opportunity been wasted, but it's almost like they would have been better off staying there in the first place, right? You met the kids like that. It's like you're better off staying in Vava'u, man. Now you're locked up for dealing drugs, fighting, whatever else it was. And it's like you should have stayed in Tonga. And so I really did care about, like, my grandparents made this big sacrifice. My father was a kid, had to learn new language, struggled with all that. My father, actually, most people don't know, my father had a pretty bad stutter when he was growing up, and he had to learn how to overcome that. And now he's like, he speaks better English than I do, frankly, and more eloquent. And so it's like I didn't want that to go for naught. And so like and I knew so we have these generations of people standing behind us who put us in this place here, teed us up to hit this home run. And it's like I cared about that, and like I wanted to do what right by them. Like I'm a religious person. I think that one day not only will we stand to be judged by our Savior, I think we'll be stand to be judged by our ancestors. What did you do with the opportunity that I handed you? And I cared about that. And so I wanted to do the most of what I could. And I don't pretend to have a ton of talents. I have a couple of things that I'm good at, and I hope I try to get better at those things. And then so that really does weigh on me, like this idea of continuing on the legacy of what my family is and what our family name means. The other thing was, for me, I wanted my kids to have an example of what it looks like to like try to do the things that you want to do. So, I'm not too concerned about failing. I think failing is inevitable. I failed a ton of times. Like I said, I almost failed out of Cypress College. It was a junior college that I don't think anyone fails out of, and I almost managed to do that. So like, I'm not saying that it's imperfect, but like I wanted my kids to see and growing up and know that like their father, whose DNA they share, he tried, right? He tried his best to succeed and do the things that he could with what he had, and not perfect at all, but that mattered to me. So mattered to me, like the opportunities that I've been given and what I do with them. And it mattered to me, the example that I'll set for my children. I don't care too much like what the world and everyone else thinks about. Like they may like you, they may not like you. Like who knows, right? We've seen locally with celebrities, politicians. One day people love them, the next day people hate them. The next day people love them, like that's all fickle. But so those are things. And then I think like when you're in it and it sucks, and you're like, when I was starting the company, it was like my schedule was nuts. It was like I was going to school, right, at Yale. It's very time oriented and whatever else, and grades, you're trying to figure out all this kind of stuff. And so you're like waking up at 8, right, do school until 3 or 4 p.m. and then start working for the company stuff. Do that from like 4 p.m. till midnight or 1. And then I was working a little bit, so I try to fit work in here and there, try to make some money for the family, because in the beginning, the company doesn't make any money for the first little bit. And then you wake up and you do it again. And it's not like you do it again for weeks. Like I did it for like 18 months, right? We're like running the schedule. It worked every Saturday. I took Sundays off. And so it's like when you're in it, you have to have something outside of you, outside of like, oh, I want money, or outside of like, oh, I want to be famous, or whatever else it is that motivates you. And to me, it was just like being able to know that like you just keep trying it and eventually succeed, so long as you don't stop trying. And so, yeah, there are other things that we've tried and haven't worked, and things that we've had to pivot from. But yeah, those are the two things I would say that motivates me a lot.
It's Koloa for those words, man.
So now, Koloa, I just wanted to freaking, man, hey, thank you for coming on to the podcast, dude. I mean, so especially getting your insight and your perspective on growth, especially coming at a young age. You were super determined, dude. So that's pretty freaking dope, man. And blessings on you, man. And grateful. We've been talking a lot on the podcast about living the American dream, man. You know what I'm saying? And that's basically what it is, man. And Koloa took it to the spot, man. And him coming from Tongan culture, Polynesian culture, and being able to develop that and grow with his company that he has now, man. So that's super cool. And definitely appreciate you, man. And grateful for you. And we're so happy that you're not the CEO that was on the jumbotron. It was Solo. We know, so we love you for that, bro.
Oh my
So like, Koloa,
gosh.
you know how to throw that on there.
Oh my gosh. Hey, that came out of left field, if you would. Goodness. Oh my gosh.
So like, Koloa, it's all love. We see those just jokes, brother.
No. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, very cool.
Yeah, bro. Nah, Koloa, I just want to thank you for your time, Toko. It was very knowledgeable and very helpful, man, to not only hear all the advice that you have and knowledge you bless us with for the youth, but then also for us. Like I said, I think it's very important for all our people to hear everything that you have to offer and kind of I feel from everything talking with you and stuff. And I did know your pops, good dude, man, and he was cool. I don't know if he'll remember me, but I think I was the first missionary that he released when he was a stake president. So I came home right after he got called. So maybe, but he was a good dude, man. I always enjoyed hearing his talks and stuff. And from what you said is and your motivations, I feel like definitely your grandparents and more so your parents now. I know they're proud of you. And I know that they can look at you and know that their sacrifice and their decision to come to the States was well worth it. And that you've blessed kind of their family line and continue to hold your family name up. And I think that's something that all us Pacific Islanders can strive to do is just remember all the people that came before us, and especially us that came to America or even anywhere in the world, wherever Pacific Islanders are from, can definitely learn from your experience and your journey and be able to use that to create our own path. And so I'm very, very blessed to have been able to spend this time with you, Koloa, and meet you formally. And so we appreciate all that you do and all your time. And I want to get you to sleep boost for seminary tomorrow morning, man. It's getting late, brother. But I appreciate you, talks.
Yeah.
No, just look, my thing that I guess I don't want people to take away from this is that like, I really don't think that like anything I did is particularly special. Like Cece knows me, like we're hanging out. Like he knows from the time I was a kid, just like every other kid. Like it's not like nothing. Like really, like leaving the kid, Tallahoe, and like it's like everything else. And so it's not like I do think that sometimes you have there's a confidence issue, right? Oh, that kid could do it, but not me, whatever else. And I don't want people to feel that way. Like it's not. And that's why I bring up Cypress College and even high school. I wasn't a standout student in high school. Like I was fine, but high school I was not valedictorian or got fives on all my AP tests. Like it's not about that, especially like when it comes to the business world where the smartest people in the world, they go and get like PhDs and go write like poetry, right? Like that's all true. The rest of us, we just try to make do with what we have and the opportunities we have and the skill sets we have. And so like I appreciate CC reaching out and inviting me on this because he knew me from the time I was a little kid. And he said, well, nothing special in any particular way, just kind of put my head down and just kept trying different things and kind of figure out what worked. And like I said, originally I was thinking about maybe doing sports and bobsled stuff, and then I kind of pivoted out and did something else. And so it's not something that I guess the takeaway that people should have from, especially young Polynesian kids, is like, dude, it's like, if I could do it, dude, I promise you can do it. I promise you. I was not extraordinarily gifted in anything growing up. So just try it out. If you can reach me on whatever, I'm not really on too much social media. I think I'm on Instagram now. I just got Instagram like a week ago. So like reach out to me on there, message me if you have questions, or if you're thinking about applying to law school or what law school to go to, or you're thinking about starting a company or you're figuring out an internship, like definitely reach out and happy to be a sounding board and jump on a call and kind of help you talk through decisions if it's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Toko.
So thanks for coming on to the podcast, my man.
Yeah, man.
No, it's good. Like I said, it's just I don't know. The thing I used to want people to walk away is like, I don't know, because I felt this way. I mean, I went to law school and I met these kids who were just like either super smart or like crazy successful. I had a roommate when I was in law school because my wife stayed in Texas and I would fly out to law school because anyway. And I had a roommate and he was like, the dad was like some super billionaire hedge fund guy, and it just felt like, oh, like I can never catch up to these guys, whatever else it was. And I just don't want people to feel like it's seriously, it's not, the path that I took is also like pretty easy to tread. The thing is, like, I never even knew what private equity or venture capital was until I was like 30. And so that was like a problem. Whereas like all the kids that I knew that were like really, really wealthy, they knew what like it's called high finance. They knew what high finance was until they were like 6. And so like, so many of them are going to get into that. But like, you know how shocking it is though, dude, Aaron? You know how easy it is for any kid especially Polynesians right now, depending on what schools they go to and stuff like that, which they like more Polynesians. Like if you finish law school at a decent school and you do decently well, like first year out of law school, most people will make $300,000, and then if you last 7 years and you make partner, you can make anywhere between $1 to $3 million. And that's like set. That's like thousands of people are making that. Now, if you go to finance, it's something similar. If you go to investment banking, you're making 250 to 300,000 year one. So most of the kids are 24, 25, 26. And if you stay in there long term, like these big guys here making 80 million, 90 million, they just stayed long enough. They started being able to share in the investments larger and larger. And so like, I just wish that more Polynesian kids were like, oh, I want to go into like private equity or like venture capital. And then
That's
if you start
crazy,
thinking that in high
dude.
school, start thinking that in high school, you go to the right school, and even like BYU, University of Utah, Cal State Fullerton, like all the UC schools can place into UCI, UCLA, UC Berkeley, and then you get the right internships. And again, these aren't like super selective. Like you're talking about if 100 people apply, like 60 get them. So it's not like you're like talking about 1%. And then you're on the path to be making literally hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time you're 22, 23. And then if you stay long enough, you're talking about millions of dollars by the time you're in your early 30s. And like basically everyone can get that. Like that's what I would love. Because the problem is you ask Polynesian youth, what do you want to do when you grow up? 90% of them say football. The other 10% of them say, oh, they're not listening. They don't answer the question.
Yeah.
So like
That's
X brought this up too, Koloa, one time, Moose, is that it's like you said, Moose, it's like they get taught this stuff at a young age, Moose.
Yeah.
Whereas people like ourselves, like so the low key, like our grandparents or our parents, they're immigrants, you know what I'm saying? So when they come here to America, they don't know nothing else but I'm here in America. I can provide for my family. It's going to give me a stable job. And that's all that matters. Yeah. And then forthcoming, it's like they're going to give back to their kids. And like my grandma wanted me to be a lawyer. She always said, I want to be. I'm like, man, I'm too stupid to be a lawyer. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I can't do that, dude. But so like, it's that thing that you said is where it's like, I wish that we were able to learn especially for Polynesians, man. Like I wish our parents, everybody, their lifestyles are different. But I wish that they would have grasped onto the finer things in life to teach us equity or real estate. Solely because honestly, that's where the money's at.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I think the stuff that you guys do in the podcast is like really interesting. Of like even, and I don't know if you guys do like series with that, but like kind of like what are like other, because I get asked quite a bit. Like I went out to Mesa, Arizona, and talked with like a bunch of the Tongan kids out there about like private equity, venture capital, and like look up, like you can look up what the private equity folks are making. They make more than most CEOs. Like the head of Blackstone in a year will make about 1.6 to 1.7 billion dollars as his compensation. Now the head of Apple makes like 100 million or 80 million. So like private equity has massive upside. I mean, you're talking about even small stage venture capital or private equity or venture capital. You're talking about like 7 to 8 figure years. Like, and that's on the small side, like small to middle market. And so like the thing that I thought, and it's something like my dad actually, his advice was, he's like, well, if you're gonna swing on something that can actually hit, and like like if you're gonna take a swing at a ball, don't take a swing at the thing that like if you hit it you make 100,000. Take a swing at the thing where if you hit it you make like $1 billion. Because like here's the thing about private equity: the people who are really good at the top 1% of private equity folks and venture capital folks, they make not just $1 billion, they make like 10 to $100 billion. Okay, so you can be mediocre at private equity and venture capital and make like 80 million. Okay, you can be like below average. So that's the kind of stuff you want to get. You don't want to get into stuff like, let's say, again, not everyone, but sports. The top 1% make like 20 million, 100 million. The next 1% make like nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's not even like scaled, right? It's not like if you're kind of good, you make like you have to be top 1% to even get in the NFL, and they're making like a lot of money, whatever else it is. You want to be in something where like you can be an average producer and be a billionaire. That's the kind of industry I want to get into.
Right. So it's like my wife always has this saying that she heard: it's 10% of a watermelon is better than 100% of a pea.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, man, if you are average in a high producing industry, you're gonna make more than someone who's at the top of their industry, like NFL players and stuff. So that's a crazy stat to hear, man. But it's good because, like you said, it's like most people, like non-Polynesians, they know about venture capital and private equity. But like the first time I heard about like venture capital and private equity was probably like an hour ago when you explained it. So I was like, hey man, that's
No,
crazy, dude.
that was and like even I growing up with like my dad was in the business world, whatever. He was in the hotel side. So like even then we didn't know, and it was just like there just wasn't the infrastructure for it. So I think that's why I think like doing stuff that you guys are doing is like hopefully some kid, some 8-year-old or some 12-year-old, 13-year-old watching this 16-year-old is like, huh, maybe I do want to get into private equity, venture capital, and in 30 years he's like some billionaire, right? It's like, oh, cool, that'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's the hope with the podcast, small kind, but we definitely want to reach out to the youth and let them know that when things come up, like you know how you said what you went through being a cancer survivor and amputee, sometimes kids that get hurt playing football or something, or things don't go their way, they don't get the scholarships that they want, then they kind of just give up. And it's like, nah, I didn't get that scholarship. I didn't get that offer. Like, I'm just going to go work. But it's like, nah, there's different paths, hundreds of different paths that you can take to be successful. And your goal doesn't have to stay the same. You can change your goal, change your dreams in order to continue to pursue something to be successful.
Yeah.
So,
and actually, the path that I would recommend, like the path that I'm taking with my kids, is go into sports as a way to get your foot into finance. So, and this is a tried and true. Steve Young did this. Like a lot of the BYU football players will do. The smart ones will do this. Is they'll go into football sports, and they kind of know, and maybe you don't know, but a lot of times you kind of have some sense like whether or not you're going to be in the NFL, right? Like you kind of know if you're a third string on a D2 school, you know, chances are you're probably not going to make it to the league, right? What they do is they go to these schools, and actually the smaller the school, the better, because the alumni network is tighter. Like I know this guy who was in like some like Idaho State or something like that, and he runs a pretty big like private equity company to buy hotels too, like worth a couple $1 billion, and he will hire consistently out of the football team because he played football when he was there. And so what they do is like, if I'm a football player, I want to get into one of these schools. Let's say even if you get a D2 whatever school, study like finance, and usually finance degrees are not very long. They don't have a ton of credit hours. It's not like an engineering degree, usually a lot longer. Take econ or finance or business degree or whatever else it is, and then intern, like find the alumni of the school that you go to that are like running these private equity, venture capital, investment firms, whatever else you want to do, and like intern for them. I guarantee they'll pick you, the football player, even if your grades aren't as good, over the random kid who has a 1600 on the SAT. Like just because you tell the story. Like there's an entire industry of ex-football players who go around. All they do is their thing is to tell the cool stories at the corporate dinners, and that's like their like role. And they're like the cool football player, right? Because all these like nerdy like banker guys who are like, oh, well, what's the square root of 64? And this guy's practicing with Andrew Luck the other day, whatever else it is. And they get these like jobs. So they use that full experience as like the way to get their foot in the door to get those jobs. And then they're out in their first years. I know some of these guys first year pulling in 300-400K out of college, and then it just goes up from there. It's like that's the move.
Yeah. So like, that's cool that you mentioned that, because so with the podcast, what we're also trying to do, like we're trying to start up a NIL company, like an agency to kind of guide kids in that way. Like not looking so much as at the 5-star kids and stuff, because I know like I already know other agencies like my uncle and stuff, they have agencies that are pulling these kids because they have the capital to fund them. And so for us, we're trying to like look at kids that are like 4-star, 3-star, but then help them to understand like, look, let's get you these deals and let's get you to where you want to go to school. But then let's set up on the back end the degree and the alumni connections and make sure that you're still set up that when football's done, you're going to have a future to go from there. But yeah, it was, man, that's great advice and knowledge coming from your end, because that helps us a lot, even in that sense as well.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever it's worth. I don't know. Sometimes I'm wrong on things. So
Nah. That's good. Man, we appreciate your time so much, Koloa. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, no, it's good to meet y'all. CC is good to catch up. Again, just reach out. Facebook's usually better, by the way. Instagram, like I said, I just barely started Instagram. I don't even know how to use it. Like I accidentally, the first time I used it, I ended up posting like 18 stories of the same story because I didn't think it was posting. I'm still trying. I'm like a boomer when it comes to that. And so Facebook is good. I know how to use Facebook. I've been using that for a while. Or MySpace. No, I'm just kidding.
Nah. No, but thanks, Koloa, man. Thanks for coming through. Hey, but yeah, man. In the future, if you're interested for a part 2,
we'd love to have you back.
For part 2,
all day.
Koloa series. Today, Koloa's gonna talk about Wall Street.
Hey, for real.
Yeah, for sure, guys, for sure.
But appreciate it, Toko.
No, sounds good. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Long on Next, for your closing words, and of course to yourself, Koloa, my little cousin, man. Yeah, man. Before I close, man, I remember Koloa, man. He was a stubborn little kid, dude. Every time Sean Tufu, his brother, were like picking him, this guy wouldn't let down. He'd get up and start charging Sean Tufu. I'm like, hey man, y'all calm down. I mean, but man, good times, dude. It's good to like kind of reconnect Koloa. You can talk about good old memories, and of course you talk about your success. And very very grateful to hear your insights for these things, like what we mentioned to you. Like this podcast is for the youth and for anyone, right? But mostly for the youth, to inspire them to kind of take advantage of the resources here, like you mentioned, here in the land of opportunity. So that's kind of our hope, and that we can be able to do here on this podcast. And Koloa, thank you once again for your time. And thank you everyone for tuning in to the Pack Nation podcast. We're very grateful to have had Koloa Wolfgramm. Also, we will include his following in the description below, his Instagram and his Facebook. So interested, reach out, ask some questions about law school and stuff. Maybe we'll have a part 2 with Koloa. I don't know if he has time. That'll be great. And so thank you once again for tuning in. And well, I'm CC.
Max.
And I'm Aaron.
And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace out.